So today we're going to take a look at a scenario where all of Latin America goes to war with the rest of America. So if you don't know what Latin America is, it's basically all the countries that are south of the US that their primary language is a Romance language. A Romance language is a language that's derived from Latin. So in America here, that's Spanish, Portuguese, and French. So even regions that are technically not their own countries and are part of other countries, like Puerto Rico or French Guiana, are part of Latin America because they speak Spanish and French. And so before we get into this scenario, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated as we try to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of this year. Let's try and get this video to 100 likes. It's not a very high number, so let's see if we can do that. With all that out of the way, let's get right into the scenario. And so right away, we have Venezuela and Brazil pushing into Guyana, as there aren't very many forces here, and these countries are much more powerful than Guyana. They also make a push into Suriname with the help of French Guiana. And Venezuela also takes out this island here. I forgot what its name was. We also have Mexico and Guatemala taking out Belize. And Cuba and other Caribbean islands manage to take out Jamaica. Mexico begins a campaign into southern US, but this doesn't go well for them, and they are quickly pushed out of US territory. Pretty soon they push over into the Baja California area and down south of Texas, where Mexico had tried to push into them. And the US also makes a landing in Cuba, taking out the island quite easily. Elsewhere, Argentina takes out these islands down here, which I forgot the name of as well, but I know they're British. And Brazil and Venezuela managed to capitulate over the Guianas. Now let's do something I don't think I've ever actually done in my videos, and that's going to be taking a look at the naval superiority of countries. So this darker reddish color will represent the Red Team Navy, which they have fully secured around South American coast, as well as around the islands here and Jamaica. They also have secured around Mexico. So they've secured all around the northern coast of South America, as well as around the southern tip of Argentina and Chile, where they've taken over these islands. There is some Blue Team Navy down here, as they try to get back at them. They do manage to push back the Red Team Navy just slightly, but not very much. Back up north, there's definitely going to be Navy around Hawaii, but that will likely be moved over here as the war progresses. In the Gulf of Mexico, the US reigns supreme as they've captured Cuba. The Bahamas are part of the Blue Team, so obviously Navy's around there. And the US tries to make a blockade around South America, but that is just in the early stages. They also have some Navy on this side where they push back against Mexico, and they have a lot of Navy pushing down towards the rest of South America. The US continues to push back against Mexico, eventually taking over all of Baja California, and even pushing back the Mexican Navy in this area. They use their Navy to bombard the coast, which eventually falls over to the US, and over in the Caribbean, the US pushes out with their Navy in hopes of reaching Puerto Rico, in which they do, and they make a small landing on the island, and eventually they do take over the island. They then use their Navy to secure the island, and then from there they push over to the Dominican Republic, where again they make a naval landing, but it doesn't go quite as well as Puerto Rico, and no large advances really made. From Cuba they push out to Jamaica, eventually securing around the island. They make landings on it and eventually do retake the island. Eventually this whole island here is secured. For some reason I can't remember the names of islands, so this island here I don't remember the name of either. That's my bad. But this island is fully secured by the US Navy, and eventually Haiti and the Dominican Republic both fall over to Blue Team forces. With Brazil and Argentina, well, mostly Brazil, not currently fighting anyone, they're moving their forces up into Mexico to hopefully hold off the US. The US now continues to move their Navy down south towards Brazil, eventually meeting the coast. Alarmed Brazil removes their troops from going up to Mexico in order to protect their homeland from a possible naval invasion. And that possible naval invasion just began as US troops and Canadian troops make landings in Brazil. Make two landings, one northern and one southern. The southern landing is completely kicked out, but the northern one advances northward. They actually take out a lot of area of the coast, eventually reach up to these islands here, and actually take them. They also send out some people to hijack ships, and so a lot of this area is going to fall over to the Blue Team Navy as well. Elsewhere, the Blue Team Navy has fully secured around these islands down here, and they're pushing back the Argentinian and Chilean navies, eventually reaching down to these islands down here. The red team is now very alarmed as they are losing a lot of ground on the water. That sounded really weird. They're losing a lot of area on the water, I guess I should have said. Whatever. But even the Caribbean, the blue team continues to push back the red team navy as they have fully secured the Gulf of Mexico and are awaiting orders to invade. Almost all of the waters around Mexico have been taken over by the blue team, and the invasion of mainland Mexico increases as they've just taken Mexico City and they make a landing in Yucatan. Eventually both these fronts meet up and Mexico actually surrenders. With that, a lot of the red team navy is withdrawn from the area around Mexico, and the blue team pushes into the area around Belize. Eventually they retake Belize and begin to push into Guatemala and Honduras. Back down south, the red team finally has success in pushing back the blue team as they push them back almost completely, and they're actually forced to retreat. The red team then fortifies this area much stronger as they know that the blue team will be trying to come down here, as Argentina's capital is right here, and they want to prevent a full siege. Eventually the entire western coast of South America is fortified, and begin to work up the eastern coast as well. The blue team begins to wrap down the western front, and they actually take the waters around the Galapagos Islands. Eventually a landing is made on the island, and they take the islands. And in the west, they meet up with the Argentine Navy, and a large battle ensues, in which the blue team is able to push around and take out the navy of the red team, and they establish a much larger front line on the waters, and they continue to push down, cutting off a lot of the red team navy, eventually pushing in and encircling a large group of ships, which are slowly but surely pushed back by the blue team, until eventually this group surrenders, and they continue to push down south. Eventually the blue team makes a landing in Uruguay, and one in Argentina. The one in Uruguay goes very well, and they push up into Brazil as well. Eventually Uruguay surrenders, and they push into Argentina. From there they capture their capital, and it doesn't go very well from there. They continue to push southward through Argentina, and northwards into Brazil. They cut off the panhandle of Argentina and begin to push into Paraguay. Brazil is now fighting a two-front war, and those aren't very fun to fight. Brazil is, however, seeing some success in pushing back the blue team up north as they have fully liberated these islands, and continue to push them back, eventually cutting off this group here and encircling them, and then pushing them back to the coast as they continue to push back the blue team over here. Eventually both these fronts are forced to evacuate, as the red team does gain naval superiority over this region once again. However, we can't really say the same, as the red team navy is pushed back in Central America, and they push back down to Costa Rica on both sides. On the land, however, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala have all capitulated to the blue team, and an invasion of Nicaragua has begun, in which the blue team was successful, and they have also invaded through Costa Rica, and have begun an invasion of Panama, which has also gone very well, until they meet the border of Colombia. The red team navy is also pushed back along the western coast until they reach here, which is pretty much stalemated. It is now that both sides don't really want to fight anymore. The red team hasn't done very well, as it's really just a bunch of weak countries, and then Brazil and Argentina. Whereas the blue side has US, they have Canada. I mean, that's really it. But those are two pretty strong countries. I mean, the US has the first and second largest navies in the world, so South America is not going to really do anything. But yeah, they're going to meet for peace now, and that peace treaty looks something like this. So here's our peace treaty for this scenario. The US getting a lot of land out of northern Mexico, as well as the Yucatan province. They also annexed all of Cuba, and this island here, and Puerto Rico. Jamaica got a tiny bit of land out of Haiti, and Belize probably doubled in size as they took land of almost all their neighboring nations. All of Mexico is left as a puppet state for the blue team, same as Central America. I don't really know how that would work since it's just America and then Latin America, but yeah. US also annexed the Galapagos Islands, Venezuela and Brazil split Guyana, and Brazil and French Guiana split Suriname. Uruguay, since it was really the only country in South America that was fully captured by the blue team, is left as a puppet state, and Argentina annexes these islands down here. And so, yeah, that brings us to the end of this scenario, and to the end of this video. So I'd like to thank you all for watching this far, and to please leave a like. Let's try and get this video to 100 likes, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.